you from the town that I love best. Talk Memphis, I wish you would. Talk Memphis.
Dan Butler's with us today. How are you?
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing really well. Let's jump right into our topic today. Last week we talked about your price, my terms, and your terms, my price. I love that episode or that topic. We've done it before, but we just kind of reintroduced it. So if you guys, it's super educational when it comes to negotiating with a seller. It gives you and the seller several options, and it's just another way to communicate some dialogue with the seller to kind of open up some different ideas,
Creating choices.
Yeah.
Creates better dialogue versus us versus them, or
that's right.
Trying to create win-wins
together. That's right. So that show is on the Facebook page, the Memphis Real Estate Hour. So if you guys want to listen to last week's show, you can go there and tune in. Today we're going to talk about rehabs. This is one of the bigger topics that I deal with every day. It is one of the topics that I think investors need to educate themselves the most on. I have made mistakes. You have made mistakes. We try to learn from those mistakes and not make them again when it comes to rehab. So today we're talking about rehabs, from lipstick on a pig to turnkey rentals. So we're going to dive right into this now. I have made not many, but a couple of mistakes with rehabs. Not in the sense of I shouldn't have rehabbed or I'd picked the wrong house, but when I went into the house, my evaluation was either influenced by my budget, or it was influenced by the ability, of the person I was hiring to do it. Or team or group or whatever that was hiring to do it, and I paid the price, suffered the consequences. This was on my first one out on Battlefield. You and I mean, that's a historical house for you and I. But
a lot of memories.
Oh my gosh! So I feel like I've learned a lot from there. And what my mistake was, before we get into our actual notes, I went out and CrestCore and City Light did a rehab bid for me. It's $8,900 or something to get the thing.
Big dollars.
Yeah. For me at the
Big
time,
money.
though,
Big money.
At the time, I thought, oh my gosh,
How am I going to pay $9,000 for a rehab?
I'm going to pay $9,000. So what I did, rookie mistake. I shaved it down to $6,000. I was like, I can get away with not doing this $2,900 worth of stuff. And of course, what was it? It was the smaller things. Replace a
toilet valve,
get
supply line, faucet leaking.
All of what you're saying right now is what I did not do. And sure enough,
and it feels like it's nickel and diming.
So I get the home rehab. We're done with what I've approved to do. We get a tenant in there. I'm stoked. She's paying $875. That was a great rental number. And then what happened?
Call after call after
call. After call after call. And to get anybody out to a house, it's about $80.
That's
and
right.
then when they get there to do some work, for sure they're going to spend an hour there. It's $50 more.
Right.
You're $130 to $140 in the hole.
Right.
I can't tell you how many of those. And it really opened my eyes up to, hey, if you can't do this or you don't want to do this the right way up front, then just wait or don't.
Yeah, and the interesting with that was she was having issues, but when a tenant has issues, what's interesting about that is they keep digging. You know what I mean? Like some of the stuff she was requesting was not.
No, legit.
It wasn't a want. It was a want versus a need.
That's right.
But then you're kind of stuck. You feel in a spot where you're going to create a very big tension if you don't try to fix those additional things. So
that's right. So let's talk about from lipstick on a pig to turnkey rehabs. Rental rehabs is totally different from retail. Talk about that just a little bit on what some investors should be looking at, because like we deal with different investors. They want to flip houses. Well, they need granite and maybe nail down hardwood. And
real hardwood and
bullnose corners and different things that you
real
would
nice
do.
fans.
That's
and
exactly
nice,
right.
LED lights. And,
yes, but a rental. I don't need that you have to have some.
It's a wide. That's why this topic's so good this morning. It's just such a wide range, what you can and can't do. So,
what are some of these keywords when we're walking through and we're thinking about, a rental rehab? So, there's two different things. We do a rental rehab and we do a retail, a residential, like a flip type property.
We do both.
When we talk about rental rehabs, what are some of the things that you look at that maybe you don't necessarily have to look at, or you pass over from a retail?
Well, I think in the retail, you're trying to be, eye popping, eye candy. You know what I mean? Like something that just pops to you when you walk in,
Sure.
and then you're focused on passing that Fannie Mae inspection.
Right.
You know what I mean? Or
Right.
FHA.
Yeah.
You know these terms better than me.
It's
But
FHA, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac.
Yeah,
Mhm.
you're trying to pass that inspection. That's what you're thinking when you're doing that house to make sure that when that inspector goes through,
No rotten boards.
Yeah.
Nothing. That everything's got to work properly.
Right.
That sort of thing.
and rental, it's the same thing, but I think more about it being safe. That's
Yeah.
where I start.
Yeah.
Is it safe?
Electrical.
Electrical, is it all grounded? Do you have sparks coming? Or your fuse box or, breaker box, are they right sized for that house? And, what you're, we run into it still to this day. Somebody buys a property and they don't get it inspected, which that's a whole nother conversation. But, down the road and all of a sudden they run the dryer and something else and it's blowing breakers. And it's because somebody, tied both of those together into one breaker, and so I text my electrical friend, I should know this as I'm studying for my electrical exam, but don't know. I hadn't read that chapter yet.
Sure.
But, you can't, those got to be on separate circuits. So to me, that's an unsafe condition that somebody's cut corners along the way. So finding out those kind of things. I mean, smoke detectors, got to have them in every bedroom now and the hallway.
Yep.
Carbon monoxide detectors, we've really pushed that hard.
Yep.
We got into some potential trouble early on with carbon monoxide because that's a odorless, you can't see it, gas.
Yep.
And so that helps you. You got to put 18 inches off the floor, put it near your furnace. So if that heat chamber ever wears out, if you're not, again, as we talk about through levels of rehab, if you're not going to replace that furnace, how can you safeguard yourself when you're waiting for that furnace to deteriorate to where you got to replace it? Does that make sense? So this is some stuff that we talk about to keep it safe.
Clean.
Yep.
Habitable.
So clean, to me, clean is, can you wipe the windowsills and the cabinets? And do you walk in, our field techs now take Swiffers and, brooms and that kind of thing to make sure. Because when you walk in in the front door, when you're showing a house, it stays dirty from people walking in from the dirt and the grass. And
that goes into the retail and in investment homes. That's for sure.
Yeah.
That first impression.
And one thing I learned early on is, I used to use 15 years ago, my sub would be my cleaning person.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, and what subs that do construction work, painting and, carpentry, that kind of stuff, they're not good cleaners.
No.
You know what I mean? Like
they're used to letting somebody come behind them.
Yeah. So when that's just something to think about. Like ask your team, whoever you're using, how do you clean your houses at the end? If it's just the sub, now if he subs that to somebody else that's a professional cleaner, that's one thing. But if you don't, you're going to be left with, mildew on windows and, mold in your grout or your caulk lines in your bathroom, those kind of things. That's what I think about clean. Is it very presentable and not going to have an issue a month down the road because you left something there to grow in an environment with,
I've got one that I'm working on right now, and low maintenance is one of our notes here, one of our headlines.
Mm-hmm.
And right under there, we got hard surfaces. So it's a 2-bedroom, 1-bath home over in Berkeley, and the bedrooms had carpet in it, and man, it was wore out, and I knew I was going to have to replace it. So I'm going to put some kind of hard surface in there, so I don't have to replace that again.
Yep.
Those are some things to consider if you're really in the game for the long term. I'm going to give you a few tips that some of the guys use for it. So carpet in your living room and your bedrooms, just pull it up. Put down some ceramic tile, put down a nice linoleum hardwood or whatever.
They call it LVP.
LVP.
Yeah, glue down hardwood is what a simple term. But
so put some kind of hard surface down, and if the tenants say something about it, they can always throw down a rug. You can get a little bit different feel. Some people don't like to get out of bed and put their feet on hard floors, but
well, that's what an area rug's for.
That's exactly what they're for.
As my wife told me this weekend, you can buy one for $20 at Lowe's.
Yeah, that's right.
Just a simple,
Is that what she got for you also?
Yeah, that's right. That's what's in our dining room right now.
$20 Lowe's, right?
But we've tried over the years all kinds of hard surfaces.
Yeah.
I've, for a while I did carpet, then I did the apartment grade carpet, and then I did the commercial grade carpet, which is real thin, hard. And it worked. It was okay because it was actually more robust. So, but But the way those seams work, they would,
Because once it starts,
man, it just keeps on running. You can't stop it.
That's right.
So that I threw that one out the window. Then I tried, I started with like rolled out vinyl, and then I tried the lock in place hardwood. That was so popular for a while, that the floating floor that's hardwood. You got
what did you find? What was the trouble there? They buckle,
water, and the way those were set up. Now they might be different now. I've moved on, so I haven't really looked into it. But you unless you knew what you're doing, you'd have to take that whole floor. Say if you had an issue in the middle of the floor, you'd have to take the whole floor out all the way back to the wall.
Yep.
So you're spending hundreds of dollars in labor just to fix that one little spot. So
that's why I go with ceramic tile. I know the grout, you have to, over 4 or 5 years, you'll have to come back in and regrout it. But to me, that ceramic tile is, you can flood, it can do whatever. Well, and it doesn't matter. Our buddies like Jeff Canner, America's Best, they can do that steam cleaning the grout every few years if you need that. That's a service they offer. So, but I like the LVP, the fake hardwood. That's been very good for us so far. But you got to put it down right. Yeah. Is it water resistant? It's water resistant, but got to be the right temperature for that glue to dry, and then you got to put a pressure roller. Most people don't realize you got to put a pressure roller on that thing to smooth it out and make it even across. We got a house right now that we're dealing with that we inherited, that the floor is, the seams are coming up just a little bit. Now, it's livable, but it's going to get worse.
It's going to get, number one, it's going to get worse. Number two, they're going to be complaining about it at some point, so you're going to have to replace it. So is it now or later, that kind of thing. So some things to make sure that you go by and you do check, lights and fans. If you got a ceiling fan, it needs to work, because if it doesn't, they're going to call a maintenance call on you. Yeah. They want it to work. So make sure any lights. And do you want fans? See, to me, I wouldn't. I'd take them out. And I hate that for the tenant, but to me, it's just setting myself up for a $135 maintenance call to fix a light or a fan that cost $135. Well, and the problem with that is, I don't know, I think it's the way that people pull on the chains and that kind of thing, and we always joke with light globes themselves, Yeah. Now we get them for $10 or $12 at Lowe's, but in packs and that kind of thing. But every time you go to do a rent ready, those globes are gone. Yeah. You know what I mean? I wonder why. It's like, that's like the biggest mystery. There must be some kind of market for hot light globes. Light globes, yeah. There's a market of just at the flea market where you're just selling globes because they're gone. So like a light bulb goes out, somebody takes the globe down, changes the light bulb, but they never put the globe back on, and then it just disappeared. Laziness, you think? They don't feel like putting it back up? Absolutely. So what else would they? Gosh. Well, so you got to think about the fan versus light. I mean, a fan's going to cost you $150, $200 installed. Is it worth? Some would say it's worth it for your air conditioning system. Yeah. Some people, higher end rentals, it might be an expectation. Above $800, they might have that expectation in the bedrooms, that kind of thing. So, just something to consider. So, depending on where you're at, where the rental home is at, dishwasher versus no dishwasher. The ones I have in Berkeley, I don't have a dishwasher in it. But if you've got Raleigh, especially Bartlett, higher ends, you've got to have a dishwasher that comes in there. These are just things to check, guys. I don't know I really have very minimal dishwashers. And there's an argument on that, whether you should provide, yes, is it nice to have, but it's another reason for maintenance call. Another maintenance call, Now, if people were more responsible sometimes in those kind of things, because they're putting food, they're not like, when our kids we make sure they wash every little piece of food off those dishes before they put them in. You put it full of food and spaghetti noodles and all that kind of stuff. Guess what happens to your drain? Your system works overtime. There's no disposal in there. Right. It bypasses the disposal. So we actually get rid of disposals. That's something else to consider. Do you want a disposal? What's a P-trap, Dan? What is that? You don't know what a P-trap? That's why you skipped that one, isn't it? It is. Disposal versus. I don't know what a P-trap is. I got to skip. I've been in this a long time. I've never heard the term P-trap. What's a P-trap? P's in the letter P, guys, not like urine. Every yeah. What's the matter, Dan? Yeah, I'll say whatever on here. I know, man. I'm like, I just can't believe you don't know what a P-trap is. Like disposal versus faucet, the letter P dash trap. Every faucet in the kitchen and bath in America has a P-trap. It's the pipe. It goes down and it dips down and goes straight up. Or your drain comes down and it dips. Oh, okay. And it goes out to your drain. I just didn't know that was called a P-trap. So yeah, it's called a P-trap. So we actually take the disposal out and put a P-trap in its place, and that way you don't have to worry about. And then on the sink, put a strainer, type system in there that would that keeps you from letting potato skins or spaghetti noodles, stuff that is going to clog up your lines. You don't want that going down there, so that keeps that from
disposals. To me, are just a maintenance call waiting to happen, because somebody's going to put something that shouldn't be in there down in there.
Oh yeah,
and when it doesn't work, they're calling immediately.
Yeah, my family does that a lot.
You do? Really?
Yeah, peeling
I can
potatoes.
see the disgust on your face.
Oh,
right
I don't
now.
like them at all. Like if I had my druthers, if I had my preference, I'd take it out.
Put a P-trap in
when
there.
they go out of town for a weekend, just take that thing out, put a P-trap.
They come back from a trip and you got P-traps in the house.
Why is this switch not working?
No, it's a new P-trap, son.
Yeah, that's right.
Mechanicals under warranty. That's so let's talk about that just for a second.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on home warranties for rental properties? Because this makes me. I know if you put a new one in, you put a new HVAC in, it's going to have a warranty.
10-year parts and a year labor.
Yeah.
HVAC equipment, plumbing, hot water, just I think 6 years for the tank, which they don't make them like they used to, by the way. But yeah, home warranties. I mean, that's part of, this conversation. I mean, like if you don't have new, home warranties might make some sense.
Yeah.
I just saw my buddy just posted online at a property management Facebook thing where tenants won't rent credit because home warranty company took 16 days to get there. So it puts you, when I'm asked about it, I'm like, if the demand is slow, like right now we're not, the calls aren't as heavy versus like say July.
Yeah.
In July, that tenant could be waiting for weeks because they're just in a hopper with a bunch of other people who called in warranty calls. And so then you're going to put your property manager and your owner in a bad spot because, who's going to pay for that tenant? The tenant's going to want some sort of, they can deal with it. They know the lease states, I think, up to 3 days that we have to fix something, but for quality of life. But after that, it becomes a big issue.
So make sure your heavy mechanicals are warranted if you can, especially if they're new. They're going to be knobs or cabinets versus no knobs. Knobs on cabinets versus no knobs. Now this sounds very
minutia.
Yeah, and elementary-ish almost, but. I mean, I guess people, if the knobs on the cabinets are coming off, they're going to call somebody to come out there and fix it. Could you imagine getting a maintenance call off a cabinet doorknob?
Well, and me, it's like it helps preserve the cabinets from a cleanliness, smudging, those kind of things. So is it worth a couple $100 to put some knobs on there? It looks better. So it's just stuff to consider.
Kitchen faucet sprayer, yes or no?
Yeah, I don't do sprayers.
You don't?
I plug that hole with a rubber seal. Because most sinks are made with sprayer.
Is this just something else that can break?
Something else to break.
Yeah.
Just make sure you have a nice long neck on your sink, but it's just something else to break. I mean, same thing with folding doors.
Yeah.
Like your closet. You know what those are?
I do know what folding doors are because that was coming. So I was going to ask you about folding doors.
I just want to make sure you knew.
I skipped it on accident. Yeah.
I just didn't know if that was purposeful.
No, I didn't. I was going to come back. Folding doors and regular doors on your closets and stuff. Folding doors have surely you're going to break quicker.
Those bifold, they're hung out by like just one little peg at top and bottom. Somehow, tenants tend to. I mean, you go in and the doors are sometimes missing, or they're just laying in the back of the closet. I was in West Tennessee last week and. I guess somebody got tired of it and they weren't going to put regular doors either. They just put like a curtain. You know what I mean? Like had a rod up there and you just peel back the curtain. There's your closet. And I was like, it actually doesn't look too bad.
The curtain?
But I was like, yeah, that's a little chintzy.
Yeah. Shed or no shed? The way I look at this, I've got a couple of where if there's a shed in the back already and it's somewhat usable, it's not, not a complete disaster as far as condition, then I'll leave it. I'm certainly not putting a shed into a rental property backyard.
On the average shed, just for listeners, I mean, it costs us about $1,500 to $2,000 to demo that thing and tear it down and haul it off. You can't just leave it on the street. You got to haul it off and all that good stuff. So it's around $1,500 to $2,000. And I'm kind of like you. Mainly if the shingles and the roof are good, I'll keep it. If it's missing. Because most people, I mean, on a rental, an investor, most of the time they don't take care of that shed.
Right.
So you've inherited. I mean, I've tore down probably 2 in the last 3-4 months.
Have you?
that just we inherited them. It wasn't worth spending. It was $4,000 or $5,000 to fix them back up, or $1,500 to tear them down, and haul them off. I'm like,
Get rid of them.
Sorry, I'd love to have that shed, but I'm just tearing them down and moving on. So
trees removed or maintained. Definitely trim. And believe me, let me tell you, code is out on one of these things. I got a call this week. I've got some tree limbs I've got to remove. They're hanging over a sidewalk. Kids can't get through the sidewalk. So they just a little courtesy call, say, hey, get these trees down. So if you've got trees, the way I removed some on my Callaherd property, I took some tree limbs that were hanging over the house. I mean, now they were 10 feet up. They weren't in any danger, but that's just going to create issues for your roof, leaves falling, limbs falling, and then they're going to end up sitting up there because no one's going to get them off.
Yeah.
And they're going to sit in the crevices of the roof, and they're going to get wet, and they're going to rot, and it's going to begin to deteriorate your roof.
do you know a tree company's favorite customer is?
Who's that?
An investor,
Yeah, I bet.
rental property owner. Why do you think that is?
Because they don't do it.
They don't spend the money to fix the
money.
trees, and so when something does happen, it's pretty bad. You know what I mean? Like, it's either they haven't cleaned it, pruned it, taken care of it to the point of now you got a $4,000 tree you got to remove.
Versus if you'd just spent $800 a couple times, you'd be done with it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Keeping it clean and fresh and all that stuff. Or you got a big bit limb that falls on your roof. That's thousands of dollars by the time you fix your your roof, your decking, and all that stuff. So you just got to look at your house. Are you okay with trees? And if you are okay, make a plan for having them and keeping them there. So
They seem minor. I mean, and it seems almost petty to talk about, but
they
parts.
add up.
I mean, it's things that you've got to do though. So low maintenance stuff, hard surfaces, lights and fans, disposals versus P-trap. We learned what a P-trap was today. Dishwasher versus no dishwasher, mechanicals under warranty, folding doors, knobs on cabinets. I mean, there's different things that we just went over. Tree removal. What about, let's talk for a second, Dan, about the different levels of rehabs. When we say lipstick on a pig, I mean, it's obvious what that really is, but go into a little bit of detail of what you mean when it's this level. This is, I'm assuming, just by that phrase, lipstick on a pig, this is a lower level rehab from a dollar amount.
Yeah, as low as you can go.
So what are some of those
Besides
things?
doing nothing.
Yeah. So what are some of the things that you'll see when we refer to lipstick on a pig?
I think, first of all, it's probably under $1,000 all in. Probably cut over the grass, mowed it down, but not really manicured.
Clean out trash, maybe in the yard.
Spot painted the walls instead of a full paint. Try to make sure just cover up that smudge with a piece of paint, and then just wipe down everything, but not really a full with bleach and cleaning supplies. Just kind of wipe things down and make it not dusty.
Yeah.
But you're just kind of, I don't know the right word for it. Lipstick on a pig, because it really is, nothing's been done.
Yeah.
I don't say nothing, something's been done, but it's
Not a
virtually
lot.
nothing.
Literally lipstick.
The only one worse than that is sometimes we'll have a client say, well, let's try to rent it as is, and then we'll fix some stuff when they show it and want to see it. And
that to me is the worst thing you can do. It's just going to sit there.
Yeah.
I don't think we're oversaturated with rental properties, but we're at the point to where tenants can be a little more picky, especially in certain areas of town. They can be a little more, hey, this one's clean, this one's not. It's
right.
To me, wiping everything down, just having everything clean as far as lipstick on a pig is good. Let me ask you this quick question, because wipe down everything made me think. What's your thoughts on satin paint versus flat paint on rentals?
Man, we've tried everything.
And I say satin paint because you could in theory, you can come back with 409 and wipe down the whole house and have it clean again. Is that? I haven't done that myself, so I'm just curious.
No, flat. The theory is flat is easier to spot paint.
Yeah.
But flat gets dirty a lot easier, versus that's, satin or semi-gloss or something like that. That's a much more, we try to stay in that satin, eggshell. I think there's an eggshell that's kind of in between those.
Yeah.
So that those work as well. So kind of, I had just had this conversation about a house in Jackson. We were looking at the walls, and the guy's like, what do you think? They want me to paint this whole wall, and I just spot painted this area. And I'm like, you kind of look from every edge, and you're like, man, once you turn lights on, you won't ever see that spot. And I was like, I've been doing this 18 years, So, but there's a difference when I'm talking about lipstick on a pig, spot paint. It's like you didn't match it. You just, it truly really needed to be painted because it's your first time or been years. And and you're just doing the minimal. Besides somebody that might say, well, let me just try to rent it. We're trying to get out of that business. We have gotten out of the business where somebody says, well, just rent it, and whatever that tenant wants, I'll fix it when they move in. And
that just causes us trouble.
And
so we're not all about looking out for ourselves in trouble.
Well, it's going to cost the owner a ton of money. Then it's going to cause friction of we didn't manage it properly, of the tenant's expectations. It's like, no, we set ourselves up for failure for the client and for ourselves and the tenant.
If this is the only position you can be in from an owner standpoint,
you don't need to be in it.
You don't need to be in it.
No.
If there's maybe you need to wait another month to save some money or go at it a different way, I would suggest that. But if this is the only way that you can be in to either start or to add more properties to your portfolio, I would wait.
And for pros, I put low costs, and that's about it. I couldn't think of any other advantages.
Because there is not.
There is not. Cons, there's a ton. It's hard to show, not very marketable. Probably have to reduce the rent at some point because it's just not getting
to get somebody in
there. Move-in issues and work orders. I mean, that's where the rub starts. Just the grind happens. And like, if you look at that and you sum up those numbers versus, say they paid $750 on the front end and then hundreds and hundreds of dollars on work orders to fix all these little things that the tenant's calling in, door hanging, a cabinet loose, all that kind of stuff. And then, you end up paying way more than what you would have done if you just did it right on the first time. Because what people don't realize is, and you alluded to that with Battlefield, like us sending somebody for 2 days to just do it, or 3 days to just do a huge list of work, is so much cheaper, probably half.
Than 6 or 7 maintenance calls.
Yeah. And people just don't realize that, and that's what they need to think about when they're working on that rehab. So you're
setting yourself up for a bad experience if you go at it this way.
And then for us on the property management side, it's a perception issue. We don't want we don't want our houses to be known, that
as those houses.
We just put lipstick on a pig and move on. We have enough issues that we deal with being property managers. We don't need to add that to the list.
So that's our lipstick on a pig lowest level of rehabs that we've got. We don't encourage it. It's something that, if I'm talking to you about the property and that's the only thing you can do to it, I'm going to tell you not to buy it. I'm going to tell you just to hang tight, do the right rehab up front, and make sure that you have that property ready for a tenant. The next level is kind of what we just called a mid-grade rehab. Painting the house, clean yard, trees, bushes, and gutters, making sure those things are cleaned up. Fill the house up with some blinds, smoke detectors where they're needed. I'm going through this one right now. Fix broken outlets. I've got a rental where I'm putting in. This is something too to maybe consider over in that Berkeley area, Dan. I'm putting in on my outlets. There's 2 plugins where they can plug in a space heater and they can plug in a window unit, and they're all their own separate
outlets,
so that you can plug one in every room and it won't trip the whole system out. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I'm losing you on electrical terms here, but
yeah,
each outlet's got its own
breaker
system to where you can plug in a space heater. You can also plug in a window unit in there, and it won't trip the whole system out. It's strong enough to stand that. So that's one thing to do. Clean the carpets, replace floors where needed. And then what's some of the pros and cons from this mid-grade rehab?
You've addressed most glaring issues. The out-of-pocket is much more minimal than, say, a full turnkey rehab.
This is maybe under $5,000?
Yeah, probably 0 to 5, somewhere in that range, maybe 0 to 8, just depending on the house.
Size of the house.
And then market rents, it's going to present well. You're going to be able to get market rents. And the other thing to think about with the mid-grade rehab is like, and we talked about that with Battlefield versus, was it Queensberry?
Yep.
I use that example a lot, where we spent, $1,200? Something like that extra.
Yeah.
We're working hard on that kind of package. Like, hey, for a plumbing upgrade package for $1,200. And you saw my email this weekend to one of your clients our clients to do that. Like, trying to make that experience better. Plumbing is a huge, deal. So, even in the mid-grade rehab, you can still do some upgrades and not be a full turnkey rehab. Upgrade the supply lines, all the faucets, all the P-traps, snake the drains to make sure that, when you turn that wash machine on and you got the tub running, that you're not going to overflow your system from just old, blockages and that kind of stuff. So
I tell you, I'm still learning. This electrical thing I just bought this house 3 months ago. I'm still learning.
Yeah.
Because I wish I would have done that up front. Now, it hadn't cost me a ton in maintenance calls because the tenant called out and said, hey, everything's tripping at just one time. So I was able to do it. But it's still something else to look at and to address. So even in this mid-grade rehab, I want to get the point out to make sure you check and update. If it's an older home, like the Berkler homes are older, upgrade that electrical. And what you just said, snake that line, that plumbing line, and make sure that everything's operable and working. What are some of the cons?
There's still potential for some work orders. I've talked to several clients about that recently. It's kind of like taking off on a flight and you're going up until 10,000 feet. That's what the first 3 to 4 months of potentially this kind of house is going to feel like. Because you're going to have full, this house has been foreclosed on or been vacant for a year. You go do kind of a mid-grade rehab. But until that thing is lived in, you just don't know of all the issues that are going to pop up. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You might have turned the light on, but when you start to put that switch on and off several times a day,
the wear and tear.
Or like we use the example of the dishwasher or the wash machine running and your tub running, and all of a sudden your stuff starts backing up. You don't see that. In rehab. We could do some upgrades and pay for that, but most people try not to pay for that.
That's right.
They're just trying to get the minimal. That's one thing we try to get across to our listeners is like, you get what you pay for.
Where's the biggest discrepancy? Like, okay, I can spend $5,000, but I need to spend $8,000. Is it that number, or is it 6 to 10?
I think it's you're talking $2,000 to $3,000 difference to make a whole different feeling
of the house.
Yeah, I agree with that.
We have gone through things to look at, from having it being safe, clean, up to code, low maintenance type things, different levels of rehab. We talked about just putting lipstick on a pig, which is essentially nothing, cutting the grass and wiping down everything that literally gets you nothing but heartache and trouble. We just discussed the mid-grade rehab where maybe you're under $5,000, you're painting, spot painting, cleaning up the yard and trees, blinds, smoke detectors, cleaning the carpets, fixing broken outlets, things like that, replacing floors where needed to. And then you have kind of a full rehab. Our third one and last one here before we go today is a full rehab. And this is, a full paint job, all new plumbing, including water heater, faucets, and toilets, replacing all the outlets and switches. I just spoke about that earlier in one of my rentals. I'm putting outlets in there that you can plug in a window unit and a space heater, and it doesn't trip the whole system out. Possibly a new roof, a new HVAC. Some new cabinets if you need it. I
think that's to me, you're somewhere in that mid-grade plus level.
Yeah.
Mid-grade and a plus to it, just adding a little extra, like little things that you can do to like the plumbing type stuff, and then creating criteria for yourself. If, furnace or condenser is older than say 6, 7, 8 years old, create your own criteria, like know what you want, do some research and say, wow, the likelihood, if the furnace is only 2 or 3 years old, we should be okay.
Yeah.
But if it's 20, either you need to budget it now and go ahead and do it, or, or budget it for the next 3 or 4 years.
That's what I tell clients. If we find something that's old like that and they ask me that question, hey, should I replace it?
Yeah, kind of a tangent to that.
Yeah.
I get, I've had 2 requests in the last, say, month where for $700 we can replace the fan motor and some switch and something else. And, you're like, well, it's a 1998 furnace. And I'm like, man, let's just spend $1,400 and new 10-year warranty.
That's what I tell them. Hey, if it's working now, your HVAC's working right now, go ahead and leave it. But plan, put away $3,500 and just plan that it's gonna go out here in the next couple of years.
Yep, because you don't, it's gotten harder with the R22, the Freon, 410.
Yeah.
So that's a whole nother conversation.
Now you're showing off all your skills,
my
and
HVAC,
your HVAC knowledge.
I have my license.
That's right.
But from a pro side, very marketable. One of the best on the street because it's going to really pop because you've really replaced everything. The new roof is going to stand out. Potentially higher rent.
Yep.
Because you are one of the best on the street. You got warranties. And your your roof's got a warranty. Your HVAC, your plumbing, all that's got warranties from the actual supplier and vendors.
Yep.
Hopefully you put in low maintenance. So your issues that move in.
You hope to at least have 12 months with nothing. If you do this full rehab, you hope to go your first 12 months with a tenant. with no maintenance
Yeah.
costs. Now stuff comes up, but
And we've definitely seen that with new construction, you know, and what's been nice with those is like you turn that over to the builder for the first 12 months because that's a warranty. You know, says he put everything in that house is brand new, the whole
right.
everything. So, but the con of it is very expensive. Your basis on that property is going to be the highest of any of what we talked about. So, you know, in one level, Fraser House, you know, in the mid-grade plus level, you might be in it for say 45, 48. And it's that same house with a full turnkey, full rehab type concept is going to be more like 65.
Yeah.
So, you know, and I think my personal philosophy, you just asked me, thanks for asking.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. So my first was like, let's try to get somebody for 10, 15 houses.
Yeah.
And build it somewhere in that middle range, not the lipstick, but somewhere mid, not turnkey, you know, full rehab, but somewhere in the middle so that, you know, if you have 10 or 15 houses, you can pay for a new roof once a year, you know, and do it as you go. And your basis and your payment's lower.
Yeah.
You know, you got more cash flow and that kind of thing. So that, again, none of them are bad choice. Well, lipstick on a pig is a bad choice.
Yeah.
I'd say, but mid-grade and above, you know, it's just a personal preference.
Yeah.
I think lipstick on a pig, you're going to lose
Every single time.
Yeah, every single time. It's not going to work. So,
well, look, today's topic was good. I think it's, as you guys know, we try to cater the show and the topics around things to actually help you invest, whether it's through us or through the company that you're currently working with. Next week's show is going to be kind of a part 2 to this. I'll put this on the show's Facebook page and kind of give you a heads up. But next week we're going to talk about the turnkey alternative, you know, product that we offer. It's not a full turnkey rehab. But essentially it is. So we're going to give you that alternative next week and see if that's something that you guys might be interested in. So we've given you the different levels today. We've talked about just sticking lipstick on a pig and really doing nothing to the home. We think you're setting yourself up for a disaster when it comes to that. Talked about mid-grade rehabs and full rehabs today. So go back to the show's Facebook page if you missed anything today. We've got the investments of the week that we'll post as soon as the show's over. And then next week we'll dive into that turnkey alternative as part 2 of lipstick on a pig versus a full rehab. Thank you guys for listening to the show. We'll see you next Tuesday at 8 a.m. right here on the Memphis Real Estate Hour.
I swear I